that was my question I wanted to ask you.
Any other questions?
I have a question,
Go ahead.
and I may be confused, so perhaps you can clear it up, Mr. Bates. Does this ordinance supersede a portion of the charter of the city of Trinidad?
No, sir, Mr. Pondo. The real intent behind this ordinance was to make this ordinance more consistent with the Home Rule Charter for the City of Trinidad. And we sought to do so by omitting one of these sentences in section 1 of section 7-47.1, which attempted to summarize section 8.3 of the Home Rule Charter within a single sentence, and got the general rule that didn't really include the exceptions to that general rule, that all members of the board need to be a resident of the city. We were merely seeking to, or the proponents of this ordinance were seeking to strike that sentence so that we could follow the procedure of the city charter. This was deemed to be a little bit more restrictive than the city charter because it actually required someone to be a resident of the city. Now, I do need to point out an oversight. City residency is also mentioned in section 4, the existing section 4 of this ordinance, and I've passed out a red line and an amended version there at your seating places that also proposes to delete existing section 4, which provides if any member ceases to reside in the city, his or her membership on the board shall immediately terminate. So I believe if the council wishes to give consideration to this ordinance, I would ask that you do so with the amendments reflected here in this revised version.
Go ahead.
Jared, at the first reading, my understanding was we were expanding the pool of applicants to include not only members of the city, but members of the county. And then I went back and I reread it, and I'm thinking it's even broader than permitting some member of the city or the county. And I don't know if we wanted to be so broad that maybe we have somebody that owns a business here but actually resides in, I'm just making this up, Colorado Springs or somewhere like that. Is that a possibility under the ordinance, even as modified?
I don't think so. No, we would follow our charter language. Our charter provides the general rule that members of our boards need to be city residents, but it also provides in the event that a board or commission may have responsibilities or duties which affect certain areas outside the city limits, the city council may appoint qualified residents of the affected area to that board or commission, provided that the majority of the voting members of such board or commission shall always be residents of the city. As it pertains to the tourism board, I think it potentially could be argued that the board's functions and duties do affect an area larger than the corporate limits of the city of Trinidad. And in that event, someone from affected areas could seek membership on the board.
So you're interpreting affected areas to be either city or county, and anything beyond that would be credible?
Well, that finding would be determined by the council. I think it would be up to the council to make a finding whether or not the applicant is from an affected area.
In looking at some of the language in the charter, and I'm just throwing this out for your consideration and for consideration of my colleagues on council, perhaps just the addition of an additional sentence that would read something along the lines, the 5 members shall be residents and registered voters of the city of Trinidad or residents and registered voters of Los Animas County, Colorado. Maybe that's overkill, but I was just a little concerned that it might be too broad.
I have a question. I voted in the negative because I thought we were going to put it if the resident of the county had a business within the city of Trinidad. That's my interpretation of it. That I wanted to see as a business owner within the city, not just a resident of the county, but a resident of the county who had a business within the city. That's the interpretation I had, and that's why I voted negative. If it were identified as such, I don't disagree with...
I think the mayor's addition is right on target, because the reason we're expanding the category is to ensure that we get adequate representation
in the business area.
In the business area, so I don't have any objection to that.
I think that was the initial deal. I think that just got a little carried away, but you're right. That was the initial, was that if you had a business and lived in the county, that's what we wanted.
As long as they have the business.
Right, that's what it is.
That's why I voted in the negative last time, but if they would identify that in the ordinance, that they have a business within the city of Trinidad, then they could be part of the tourism board or appointed to the tourism board.
And I'm questioning how come we move forward when we're already to the second reading and now have another revised revision?
Well, that's what the second reading's for, so that we can revise it and make changes. That's why we have the second reading.
For the
Go ahead,
purpose
Carol.
of revising requirements.
It may be amended on second reading, but if it's substantial, we would probably
And we just get it when we won't get
move
it?
to commit or postpone and come back with a new reversion.
So will we table this until we got a revised?
Yeah, why don't we have a motion to table it at this point, pending the changes that were recommended by the council. Do you have all of those on? Okay.
I'll make a motion that we table that until we can get clarification on that and revise it.
A second.
Moved by Mr. Shu and second by Mr. Baca. Roll call?
Baca Gonzalez?
Yes.
Bolton?
Yes.
Benado?
Yes.
Hondo?
Yes.
Shu?
Yes.
Velasquez?
Yes.
Reno?
Yes. Let's go to B, public hearing for consideration of the ordinance amending Chapter 3, alcoholic beverages, Section 318, prohibited acts, penalty of the Code of the City of Trinidad, Colorado, for the purpose of allowing consumption of fermented malt beverages at the upper field, baseball field, I guess, Upper Central Park Field facility. The hearing is now open. Do we have any comments relative to that? Either by the audience or by council members? None? Audra, would you read the
An
second
ordinance
reading?
amending Chapter 3, alcoholic beverages, Section 3-18, prohibited acts, penalty of the Code of the City of Trinidad, Colorado, for the purpose of allowing the consumption of fermented malt beverages at the upper field baseball facility of Central Park.
Do we have a motion?
I so move.
Moved by Mr. Benado,
Second.
second by Mrs. Buck. Roll call?
Baca Gonzalez?
Yes.
Bolton?
Yes.
Benado?
Yes.
Hondo?
Yes.
Shu?
Yes.
Velasquez?
Yes.
Reno?
Yes. Motion carried. Item C, consideration of Monument Lake 2012 operation plan. Mike?
Mayor Reno, members of the council, Mr. Gildo Rubio, Mr. Beatty. I